Hello, I'm Scott Frondorf. I'm an associate professor of psychology and a research scientist at Pitt's Learning, Research and Development Center. In this video, I'm going to talk about how people choose their learning strategies and why that matters. In high school and in college, students need to make a lot more choices about how to study and how to learn. What material do I need to go over for my biology exam? Should I reread my notes or take a practice test? Do I space out my studying or cram the night before? When have I studied enough? Decades of research in cognitive psychology have shown that some study strategies are more effective for learning and retention than others. But unfortunately, people don't always choose the most effective learning strategies. Why not? Here's one explanation from research in my lab led by Dr. Afton Kirk-Johnson. Many strategies that are effective for long-term learning, like quizzing yourself, require more mental effort up front. In the moment you're studying, it's easy to misinterpret that feeling of difficulty as a sign that you're not learning from those strategies. It's not that people are lazy. It's just that those strategies that pay off in the long term don't always feel so helpful in the short term. As a student, recognize that this is hard doesn't always mean I must not be learning much. Challenge and struggle are often a normal part of learning. But even if it feels tough in the moment, a good study strategy can pay off in the long run, like training in the gym. One good example is that just rereading your textbook or your notes often makes you feel good about what you know. The answers are right there in front of you. By comparison, quizzing yourself requires more mental effort. It might even make you feel like you don't know the material well enough. But quizzing yourself is generally much more effective for your long-term learning and retention, what scientists call the testing effect. So don't be fooled by which study strategies feel easiest in the moment. As an instructor, don't assume the activity or assignment that's best for learning is the one that's easiest for students. For example, when I'm teaching a statistics class, I often give everyone a worksheet to do in class, and I watch how they're doing. I have to remind myself that if it takes people a little while to figure it out, it doesn't always mean that I made the activity too hard. Sometimes, puzzling through things is what's needed to learn. And to provide context to these activities, I talk directly about the science of learning in my classes. I explain how meaningful practice spread over time might be challenging in the moment but helps us learn. In short, when it comes to learning, don't be fooled by what feels fluent or easiest in the moment. A more challenging task now can pay off with better learning later.
So students are rarely taught effective study strategies, so they often rely on their own perceptions of what study strategies feel the most effective. For example, just because study strategies feel easier and you might feel that you're learning from it a lot, this doesn't mean that you actually are. In my research, I'm looking at how pre-existing expertise can impact the effectiveness of restudying compared to retrieval practice. An example of restudying would be rereading a textbook chapter, and an example of retrieval practice would be writing down as much as you can remember about a given topic. As an instructor, it's important to realize that the best way for students to study material isn't always one that comes the most naturally to students. Also, just because a topic is less familiar to a given student, they can still benefit from using a more challenging study strategy. For example, I'd encourage students to try and effortlessly test their knowledge when studying for an upcoming exam. Rather than rereading their notes, I'd encourage students to use flashcards or quiz themselves on key terms, or write example exam questions and then try to answer them. Everyone, novice and expert learners alike, can benefit from more effective study strategies, even if they feel challenging at first. While actively retrieving information can feel initially more difficult, it will lead to better long-term memory outcomes.
If you're a student looking for specific strategies to help you study and learn, make an appointment with Pitt's Study Lab. Faculty can check out the University Center for Teaching and Learning for resources for teaching and supporting your students.
For example, just because study strategies feel easier and you might feel that you're learning from it a lot, this doesn't mean that you actually are. In my research, I'm looking at how pre-existing expertise can impact the effectiveness